Chinese spy balloon gathered intelligence from sensitive U.S. military sites despite U.S. efforts to block it. Now they are saying that the balloon indeed went over military sites, in fact did figure eights, and went over some of the most sensitive military sites we have. It would, because everybody is confused on what is the truth about the balloons, and of course the week afterwards it was, take me down some ET and all of that, and every one of the distractions that happened afterwards. But many do believe that first balloon was legit, and it was a very bad thing. Again, that whole other balloons, as far as the 8 other things that they took down and had zero evidence of, a lot of people even thought that may have been them trying to regain some reputation for the president, because those he was just like pew 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 and taking them all down, and the second he saw him, I ordered him down. The balloon, the original one, if you do go with the most likely story, it was probably not on accident, and it probably was some sort of spy thing, right? But as this thing came over, they actually removed nuclear weapons and nuclear ships out of dry dock in my area by Bremerton. At the same time, they said it was for seismic concerns. So they removed all of these nuclear ships at dry dock because they said that there was some sort of seismic concern around that exact same time that it would have been flying over Washington. That would make sense if they saw something flying over, they caught it a second time, a third time, they knew about it, and again, didn't take it down because whatever reason, right? Well, at least this is what is being said. It says the Chinese spy balloon that flew across the U.S. was able to gather intelligence from several sensitive American military sites, despite the President B administration efforts to block it, which this is funny because it says despite the administration's efforts to block it, the efforts were done after it had crossed the entire, let me add echo to that, the entire United States. And it says, from doing so, according to 2 current senior U.S. officials and 1 former senior administration official. Now, to give credit where credit is due, if the thing did have some sort of thing inside of it, or if you hit it and it released something, or that, it could fall on people, there's that, right? But again, there were plenty of spots that they could have taken it down over the Rust Belt that were, perfectly fine. It's almost like they wanted it to go all the way over all of our bases. China was able to control the balloon so it could make multiple passes over some of the sites, at times flying figure 8 formations, and transmit the information it collected back to Beijing in real time. The 3 officials said the intelligence China collected was mostly from electronic signals, which could be picked up from weapon systems and include communications from base personnel rather than images, the officials said. So they're saying that it was actually, rather than a camera, this thing was picking up sound and picking up other things. Kind of freaky to think about if it is true. So we're going to talk about this and much more tonight. We have deadlines and red lines being crossed. Deadlines for a meeting that has happened on the 5th with China and with McCarthy and Beijing, Taiwan, and Beijing is pissed. We're going to talk about, of course, Russia and Finland joining tomorrow, I believe, or within the week, joining NATO. So we'll talk about all of that in just a second. We'll be right back right after this with Marfoogle News. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Forgive me, I am coming off of a pretty bad sickness here. Let me fix that. There we go. No more hiss. Sorry about the loud, chunky noises. Sorry, you guys. I'm coming off of one of the worst sicknesses I've had since I supposedly had CV. In fact, it reminded me a lot of that. I had the chills for a good 2 hours, and then all of a sudden everything just started kicking off. I never had a fever, but I didn't have my voice. My wife got it much, much worse. She could not talk or eat or drink anything for an entire 3 days. She had to resort to stomping to communicate with everyone. It was pretty bad, but I'm getting my voice back now, and I appreciate everybody being patient. We did not have a show on Friday, so we have a lot to cover, a lot to go over, and of course, a lot of really crazy things have happened over the last weekend. Many people are kind of reeling from how much there truly is, and many are not really accepting kind of how bad it is right now. At least that's what I see in the people that I talk to. Many do not see how horrendous this is. And part of the whole thing with our community is that we doubt everything is true. But at the same time, that kind of protects us. That kind of makes us be calm, that everything is a distraction. Everything is not happening. Just bear with me and give the benefit of the doubt. Possibly. Do you think that our brains may do that to defend and to try to protect our stress levels and things like that as well? I do realize there is 90% distraction out there. But if you look at the 100%, even if 1% of that is true right now, we are not headed in a good direction. And there's 50 different directions this could go. All of the directions that they want us, the goals that they have for us to be at, 2030, 2035, 2040, all of them are bad if you are like me. If you think like me, if you're like-minded like me, then the future is very bleak. Not being able to speak, not being able to own things, not being able to travel freely, not being able to eat what you want, not being able to spend freely, or at least not with somebody over your shoulder. These are all things that are happening right now, regardless of any disaster that may happen. The point is not to scare you with this show, but to prepare you for what may happen and to look at patterns in what is happening in mainstream and show you where we think it is headed. And this community has been correct many times, and you guys are all part of it. So just to get started, if you're new here, go over to marfooglenews.com. You will find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document. It's very easy to navigate. You have a full source bibliography right here. Just look for today's thumbnail, Nuketown, USA, everything at once this week. And then once you click on that, you will find that every single article and source for that article, picture, tweet, video, picture, document, whatever we're showing you here today is available right there. There's also a whole lot more. There are all of the stories that either will get you in a bar fight if you at least talk about in 2023, and all of the stuff that just couldn't fit. If there's, if there's something that's really, really, something everybody's talking about, but it's not very important, it will also be down there as well. Viral things like that will all be down in the overflow and the web content. So make sure to go check that out. We'll talk about that briefly at the end. And then make sure to go over and check out all of our mods and our friends. These are all YouTube channels that you should go check out. They are all great people, and they might be the solution for the problem that we present. If we tell you, hey, there might be a financial collapse, there's probably channels in that group that will help you with tips and tricks to survive that financial collapse. But that's only one of the many directions this Y road could go down. It's not even a Y. It's more like a... It's one of those. Let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So, let's see here. Going back to the balloon, many people have wrote off the balloon, and that is because, if you remember, this is actually the theory that everyone had in the beginning, but it was called theory, and what the reality was then it was a weather balloon, or then it was a spy balloon, but it was an accident, this and that. Then there were all of these other objects around the world, and really it was about 8 or 10 objects. They were closing down airspace, they were doing all these things. They said some of them were octagonal, and then they explained it, and they said that it was because they had broadened their radar readings. Basically, they are now, after this event happened, they then changed the settings on their radar, and they were picking up all this extra stuff. They could have picked up a large, gender reveal balloon for all we know. But they were picking up all this stuff. They were, picking up octagonal things. It was looking like a UFO invasion was about to happen. But going back to the main one, was that all to get people to just kind of brush off and forget about that first one? I don't know. Now they're saying that it did figure eights and it went over our bases. That actually makes a whole lot more sense than any of the stuff. And remember, all of the truth comes out now like 4 months later. The BS is said in the first few days. And then 4 months later, after everybody's beyond and doesn't care about it anymore, that's when the truth usually comes out. If you haven't noticed, anything with CV and the stuff, that add a year to that, and then you'll get the truth. But it all eventually does come out because they're not good liars. Dex, go ahead. What do you think about this?
Well, I've had my fair share and fill of balloon stories. It's been covered so much, but there's a lot to be said about this, especially now that they're telling us more. While I'm talking, check the comments. There was one super from Dan or somebody, I can't remember who it was, but said that they had intel on that, so that'll be interesting to read. But my point of view on this is obviously, if it's legit, if it's really from Xi's country, then it certainly more than likely was doing what we all sort of suspect it was doing, which was looking for intel, looking for data, and potentially sending it back in real time, as they said. So I don't think that's a shocker, but at the same time, I don't think that that's necessarily a cover story or anything. That's probably legit. I think the real question, a lot of us want to know is, why did we not hear about it, or why didn't they take care of it when it was over the Aleutian Islands? Which, for those of you that don't know, that's the little trail of islands that come off of Alaska. They knew about it back then. Why didn't they take care of it on the 27th? I mean, that's the same. I think it was the 28th when it hit there. The day before is when they removed the subs out of Puget Sound. So the timing, like you said, is very, obvious. Like they started moving things around right away, but we didn't hear about it for at least another couple of days till it was literally over the Dakotas or over Wyoming, somewhere in that area. So yeah, kind of strange.
And someone corrected it. It's been about, what was it? Was it January or February?
January 27th, they removed the subs out of Puget Sound. January 28th, it would have hit the Aleutian Islands.
Okay, but and when was the balloon discovered, right? That was...
It would have been shortly after that, because it had to go from the Aleutian Islands over to, I don't know, it wasn't North Dakota it was discovered in. I want to say it was Wyoming.
So, but it was around that time in January, right? January or February?
The beginning of February, end of January.
Yeah, so it's been almost 2 months. It's somebody corrected and said it's been about a month, not 4 months. But the point is, the story is over. The story was blown out of proportion for 2 weeks straight. It was everything anybody could talk about, and then it just totally disappeared. Like most stories, we archive them. We make sure to go back to them, because sometimes these little stories or these big stories that everybody forgets about will end up playing a part in later news. And then, as far as what is going on now, look at everything that is happening. This will probably play a part into some future event. If we do have bad events that happen, you will be able to go back to them and go, wait a second, now this makes more sense. It doesn't make sense at the time, but when you look back, it does. But yeah, after the story is completely just everybody's done with it, totally just blasted to the point where like, I don't care. I mean, think about it. They can actually turn the psychology of what people think about a subject. If they blast it so much that people are just tired of hearing about it, people get to the point where they're annoyed and don't care. Even if it is important, if they've been blasted with it so many times, they don't care. They don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about the damn balloons. But what if the balloons were important? Well, they can easily get people to be like, I'm skipping that one. I don't care. I've already heard enough. And then we have, of course, damaged nuclear bomb at Dutch base was dummy weapon, Pentagon says. So a big thing. We'll talk about that in here in a second. But Dex, you want to touch on the balloon real quick before we move on?
Well, I just wanted to get to this comment. It was Ray the Way. He says here at Whitman Air Force Base, we had an intel brief about the balloon last week. Obviously, it's confidential. But what he did say is we were told something completely different than what we're reporting right here. And so he says at this point, I don't know what's the truth anymore.
Yeah,
I thought that was fitting for this. That's pretty interesting that that's what's being told to the military, which is, we don't know what that is, but we know what it is different than what we're reporting or what we're reading in the main news that they're reporting to us.
Yeah, I was actually just about to get to that, and I actually think that, and by the way, and since it's confidential, obviously we're not going to know, but if he's saying it's completely different, why that would matter is that if it is truly something that they don't know about, or if it is something that they're being used, just him saying that alone makes me question the narrative of it going over the bases or whatever else. But maybe that's on purpose, or maybe they're purposely telling the folks in the military something. If you think about it, though, they end up getting used for just as many experiments as they want. They can do psychological experiments if they want. They can prick you. They can do all sorts of stuff. But I wonder, Ray, the way if I wonder what you found out there. That would be very interesting to know, but I understand you can't give that out. But if it's, I guess, is there a way you can say how different? Is it like completely the opposite, or some parts are the same? That's what I wonder. And then Emerald is Legod. Emerald dis Legod. I think that's how I think I said that right. Thank you for the super chat, and I appreciate that. Joe that you know, Schaefer Girl, LOD Will, Be Real Beast, Jay, and Stephen McMahon, thank you for being the last ones out, along with Quizzical State of Mind. I apologize that I missed you on the last show. David Wad, Charles Goki, and The Lifeboat, and Matthew Michael. Thank you guys for supporting on the last show. This damaged nuclear bomb at Dutch base was a dummy weapon. So there was this is the picture that everybody was debating, and they said that it was one of the first broken nukes. First of all, this thing looks like it's made out of cardboard and tinfoil. They said it's a dummy weapon. And Dex made a great point. If this was a real nuke, would there be some guy in a tracksuit sitting there right next to it? Especially if it's broken. Maybe. I don't know if you've ever... I know that there was actually several Fugel fam members that all had the same job, which was protecting... They basically sat, and they said it was the most boring job in the world. They would be inside the checkpoints, inside protecting the nukes in the United States. As far as like those guys, they sit there for 12-hour shifts, basically with no action, no nothing. Nobody ever tries to get in there. It's not like they get people, rushing the gates or anything. They say that they basically sit there all day, every day, and nothing ever happens. I mean, that's a good thing, right? But they obviously this is a nuke. But I would love to hear from you guys. Would they be hanging out in tracksuits right next to a real nuke? Probably not. Because people are questioning if that's true that this is a dummy weapon. It says the Pentagon has said that a picture featured in a report by the Federation of American Scientists, or FAS, on Monday about apparent damage to a U.S. nuclear bomb at a Dutch airbase was a dummy weapon used for training emergency response teams. FAS published a photograph of a B-61 bomb being inspected for damage by U.S. soldiers, including 2 from an explosive ordnance disposal unit and a civilian. The rear of the bomb appears to have been twisted by an impact, and one of the tail fins is missing. There is pink sticky tape covering an apparent hole. Yeah, I'm sure that they just smack some duct tape on it. And with today's military, they're probably like, well, we have to have pink duct tape. But I highly doubt that that's a real one. Definitely looks bent. Imagine hitting a real one with a forklift or something. Man, you would probably, for the next week, thank everything around you and be smelling the roses every walk you took. Dex, what do you think as far as, it's obviously bent and messed up?
Well, they went a little crazy with it earlier. The FAS did, not them, but everybody after their reporting, because they reported the photograph that was used by someone in a presentation. The student that had from Los Alamos was making this presentation. And then they started looking through this photograph and realized it was in Europe, and then realized that if it's true, it's the first ever, nuclear accident with a weapon like that. That they're aware of. So that's what got everybody in a buzz. And so obviously the Pentagon did come out and clarify, saying, no, that's a training, that's a photograph of a training operation that happened. So that's a dummy. But, I guess if it wasn't, if it's not training and it got that damaged, I don't know how. Maybe it somebody dropped it. Or like you said, ran a forklift into it.
Well, I just love that we send 50 billion some elsewhere, and as far as we're training people on one of the most important weapons in the arsenal, and we have pink duct tape on the front of it. It might not even be duct tape. It might be cellophane. They couldn't afford duct tape. But yeah, that would make sense. This guy looks like a trainer. He looks like an ex-specialist of some sort. They all have the hat and glasses thing. I don't know. They just all wear fatigue hat with the sunglasses on top. Generalization, I understand. But it's completely true. Absolutely. Always and forever. And that thing looks... And you can see that it could be metal. It could be like a close to a real thing. But I guess we don't have the budget to fix it because we send it somewhere else. And then Navy tests secret project Overmatch Tech with Carl Vincent's strike group. Next, do you want to go over what this was and what they were testing here?
So apparently, well, we don't know much about it because it is secret. But what we do know from what they've reported here is that this is a communications grid that's being put together that allows them to communicate across land, air, sea, space, as well as cyber computer. But it's interesting, the integration with space, the integration with land, air, and sea. I guess, like we can sort of take that for granted because we just think we pick up a cell phone and we can communicate everywhere. But the level of communication that they need to coordinate and not only that, but maintain that communication remains secured and not can't be picked up by floating balloons listening into the comms that are going down. So that's what they were doing. They basically used an entire carrier group, the Carl Vincent, and this was out off of California, and they were running this test, and this was to test this brand new system that we don't know much about, but all we understand is it's about communications and some sort of technical communication amongst them all. I'm assuming there's some integration with their satellite systems now as well, or more. I'm sure they've had it already, but something new with that.
Well, either way, we've tried to follow it, and maybe later we'll end up finding out more about what it is. Sorry, I thought I was muted, but somebody cracked me up. They said, you need that 20,000 mile per hour duct tape. Somebody else said, flex tape every time. Unseen Apex said flex tape every time. I guess flex tape has taken duct tape's place, right? But no, you don't need 20,000 per hour duct tape. You just need regular duct tape or flex tape, and then WD-40, and the air just whoosh. Yeah, I mean, it's WD-40. You can use it for everything, from a squeaky chair to a weapon of mass destruction. Intense activity spotted at North Korean nuclear site, says monitoring group. I talked about this on my short shareable video over on news. I gave my opinion. Obviously, you guys know I think Kim might even not even be around because of all of the weird stuff that happened around his surgery, him being presumed dead, and then all of a sudden his sister started talking, and now he's back in the picture. Pictures like this, by the way, can be faked. His daughter looks like an AI generated photo that they like plopped him in and said, what would his daughter look like? Like, first of all, and then they used this photo again. I've called this out. I said, who the heck is this guy who with sunglasses and a mask is so vital? They blurred out his image. It makes me curious. Last time we showed this picture, I said, who is that guy? Why this one guy in the NK thing, why is his face blurred? He's got a mask. He probably doesn't even, he's wearing the mask to cover his face. Like, who the heck is that? Is that, somebody else that we thought was, perished or something and he's actually alive? Or maybe that's Kim and this guy is some clone. Who knows? But Dex, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know what's going on with this, but they say they're doing nukes. That could be CIA or some other thing going on there. And I'm going to switch you over here real quick. Hold on. Let's see here. All right, go ahead, Dex.
Yeah, I think I said last time that was Dennis Rodman kneeling.
Yeah.
He couldn't be standing. He's too tall for them. But tall and short jokes aside, look, they've been developing their nuclear systems since the 50s. So as much as we hear most of it in the last couple of years or the last few years or the last even 5 years, they've actually been doing this for a long time. So don't dismiss it as the sense of like, oh, they're just the new kids and they don't know what they're doing. They may be, but ultimately it's been pretty clear that they have been given tech, and we know that because some of it's been announced, but they've been given tech from Putin. So that tech, whether it be how to create the devices or how to refine and enrich uranium, and what they're talking about here is a 5 megawatt reactor that's having a lot of action around it. These are the different types of things in these reactors are what they would use to do enrichment and create that enrichment. And when they make the enrichment, then they can collect and store that and use it in either a low yield or a high yield, depending on what they're trying to build. Low yield would be ideal for an EMP, high yield obviously for destruction, or as they claimed a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, the tsunami capability, which again comes from Russia. So if everything they've been given, including the FOB system, the fractional orbital bombardment system, which came from Russia, if they're clearly getting everything from them, it would make sense that they're going to have hypersonics, they're going to have the tsunami capability, they're going to have whatever, because there's some sort of setup here going on with with Kim and with that nation, and there's a whole lot of secrecy, and I guess they have the benefit of there is like this sort of curtain that nobody really knows what goes on there. It's not like they're open to the world. They are a hermit nation.
So I wanted to pull up a lot of folks making comments. Really think about it. His daughter popped up out of nowhere. It just doesn't make sense. We're supposed to believe that he just had this daughter, in secret for all of these times. And when you see the pictures, it's like, I mean, this looks like AI. Look at this. They're walking in front of a nuclear site. This is actually a cropped in one, right? There's several, and it's like they look fake. It first pulled up Kim Kardashian. Oh, geez. Look at this one. Now, this looks ultra real because it even looks like they used flash, right? And it's in front of a military weapon here, right? I don't know. I honestly, I haven't heard too many people even thinking about that. But why did he bring out his daughter now? And everybody's saying that he's trying to set it up so she'll be the next ruler. Someone said that the person with the mask and the sunglasses, that's his dad, and his dad isn't dead. That would be kind of a scary thought if you think about it. But you never know. Think about how many countries want to take these guys out. This is a... all of these pictures can be AI'd now. Look at this one. Okay, I'm sure that has to be fake. That's just fake, I'm sure, right? Or is this from a movie? That's got to be from a movie. Look at how that's got to... I'm not going to claim that's a real one. That looks like just a straight up movie, scene or something. Look at this. These are all the... If you've seen what AI can do now, they can make photos and even videos now, but they will look like this. If you've seen what AI does now, but what is the angle? Why? What are they trying to do with it? If that is the case. If not, why is he even bringing his daughter out? Why? It's just so weird. It's so freaking weird. And then why did his sister all of a sudden go away now? And now his daughter pops up. Go ahead, Dex.
Interesting tidbit. The reason we know her name comes from Rodman. He was the one that said he was holding the baby, Jue, or however you pronounce her name. So that's how we know. But there's apparently 2 other children that we know nothing about. We don't know the names. They believe one to be an older boy, and the other one they don't know the sex or anything of. So again, there's such a curtain around that country, and only the information they want out gets out.
But yet this daughter, he's just like, oh, she's my favorite. She loves, like I bet she put a cat in the microwave or something. And she's like, that's the one. You make me proud. North Korea threatens retaliation for U.S. South Korea military drills. Not an empty talk. Or not empty talk, basically. This is, not bluffing. North Korea is warning its southern neighbors and the United States that it is not making empty talk on its nuclear capabilities. The rhetoric came in a commentary published on the state-run Korean Central News Agency, which condemned South Korea and the United States for the joint 11-day Freedom Shield exercise held last month. The piece accused the South and the U.S. of being warmongers and going to the extremes. Their war hysteria is running up to the climax, along with the start of Sisayong, a joint landing drill, the commentary read. The author also took issue with the forthcoming plans by the South and the U.S. to stage their largest ever combined joint firepower annihilation drill. And it says in June, commemorating the 70th anniversary of their alliance. This reminds the people and the army of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea of June 1950, when they had to be subject to war calamity, and further arousing their high vigilance. It added that the U.S. and its followers should never forget the fact that their rival state has possessed the nuclear attack capability in practice, as well as the characteristics of the people in the army of the DPRK, which do not make empty talk, empty threats, essentially. The thing is how they are tied in with China and Russia right now, and if we are truly at odds, or at least the good half of our country and the good half of our government is at odds with Russia and China and all of these people, this country could very well be used as the head of the snake. It would really be the tail of the snake. It would be the tail of the scorpion, right? The head and the body of it would be Russia and China. The stinger would be North Korea. And, well, I guess they would strike back North Korea instead of China and Russia. Who knows? Maybe there's a deal there. Or maybe he doesn't exist. Maybe he is AI and deepfake, and a 3-letter agency, possibly even the U.S., has taken over the North. Maybe it's all, behind closed doors deals. And then what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's see here. Thank you, Anita Spencer. They are all friends. Yeah, you've all seen. They're all different wings of the same bird, right? But we don't know what's real. And at this point, everyone thinks that they know, and everybody is so confident in their own thoughts. Just realize that we create our own echo chambers that way. and be open-minded that somebody else might be right. I know 100% that I am not 100% right all the time. I have my hunches. I have people that I trust. But even then, I know that I can be wrong all the time. And we should all think like this and try to work collectively to try to get to the truth. We shouldn't care if it's the left or right or this or that. We should just be looking for the truth. And keep asking questions. Don't, take everything with a grain of salt. And, literally just keep trying. We just got to keep going until, and mainly, I think that's the point though. Even if you don't ever get the truth, I guess the message we're saying here is you can always get prepared. You can always be prepared for whatever the truth might come out to be. It's looking like the truth is going to be very bad no matter what we find out. And we know there is a massive, massive op going on around the world. It's insanity. Before we talk about McCarthy and the deadline, I want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, go over and check out the energy systems. These are solar generators that can get power from the sun. Usually these come in packages with solar panels. Again, that you definitely want to get. You definitely want to get a solar at one point if you can, because this is amazing. You don't have to have $5 a gallon gas put into it. You have unlimited power as long as you have sun. And even if you're in a cloudy area like Seattle, like if you live here, people go, oh, I would never get solar. It's too cloudy here. It's too rainy. You still get power, just like you can still get sunburn in a cloudy day. In fact, these are extremely, extremely reliable. They're extremely fast charging. It depends on which unit you get, but the coolest ones are definitely the Energy Flex 1500 and the new Tactical. There's a giant sale going on, which actually did we find out if it was going to keep going or did it stop, Dex? We'll have to find that out. But you still get our special discount no matter what, so make sure to go over and check that out. These can be expanded up to 96 batteries, and on top of a huge discount, you're going to be helping independent news. You're going to be preparing yourself. You're going to have power when your power goes out. In a blackout situation, to be able to have this, turn it on, and to power whatever you need, it's a huge deal. Not only that, it becomes useful in everyday scenarios, whether you're thrown in a truck, using it for a drill, using it for a handsaw at work, or even just powering a TV and tailgating or something. It has come in handy in a million different scenarios. Even having power and not having a plug-in in my backyard to saw wood in half, it's like I've been able to take this out and, use construction tools. It's been awesome. So make sure to go check it out. The Flex 1500 is expandable. Like Legos, you can actually mod it. You can change the overall purpose of it. That is what's really cool. And now they have the all-new Flex UPS charger, which not only rapid charges it, it also turns it into an uninterrupted power supply. So you can plug things into this, then plug this into the wall. When your power goes out, it immediately switches over. I think it has to be under like 10 milliseconds that it does the switch for it to be considered UPS. So again, it's fast and it is awesome. They're built like tanks, especially the Tactical, and they will last you a lifetime. So make sure to go over and check it out. marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY. Dex, were you able to find out if that's still going or is that over?
No, no, it ended at the end of the month.
Okay. All right. So you still get our special discount. Next time that we will update you on when they do that again. And I don't know if they're still doing the discount on the pre-orders. So we'll have to check on that too. And then Speaker McCarthy's office confirms meeting with Taiwan's president, which has drawn criticism from China. We talked about that this would be a possibility at first. They didn't know if Kevin McCarthy was going to visit, or they said that it may not have happened and that he was coming through for this reason. And but China basically said, no, if the Tsai Ing-wen is going to the United States, it is guaranteed that it's going to have some sort of formal meeting with the government. Now there's confirmation that Kevin McCarthy will be meeting not only with Tsai Ing-wen in California, but there will also be other Congress members there. So something might get worked out, whether it's what we think is going to be worked out or whether it's something totally out of left field. If there's some big plan being worked out right now, or there is words, or they're meeting and they're going to go, hey, we think the war is going to happen this year. All of that would go down in this meeting because it is a face-to-face meeting. They can do it off the record. There's no chance of anybody hacking into the Zoom or whatever, government, TV lines, secure lines that they use. So I just wonder what is going to happen here. This is going to give China possible excuse to not only do another drill or something huge around Taiwan. This could also give them enough reason, if they frame it right, and by framing I mean like how they make a giant deal out of it, for them to take on Taiwan. We don't know. So this is a pretty big meeting, and this date could be history, or it could be a whole nothing. It could be nothing. But judging from the past events when they meet, something usually happens. So I'm guessing by the 6th or the 7th, we will be covering some sort of massive event that China is doing, and it is all because of our actions, and they will reiterate that not only in the Global Times, the People's Daily, the Xinhua. They will keep reiterating that it is our fault. We did this. We could have prevented it. It's kind of their MO. It's what they've done multiple times. Dex, go ahead. What do you think it will happen here?
Well, it's interesting. She already flew into the U.S. last week and went through New York on her way to South America, and met with the House Minority Leader. And then we were waiting. It was alleged that she was supposed to meet with Kevin McCarthy, but we didn't know if that was going to happen Thursday. It didn't happen because he wasn't in New York. But then her flight back comes right back through the U.S., this time stopping in L.A. So that's what was confirmed finally today. It had been said last week it would be on the 5th, which is Wednesday. And now today, the House Speaker actually confirmed it. So just remember what happened when Nancy went there. Now, mind you, Kevin said, hey, I want to go to Taiwan. And he wanted to go there, but then he backed out because of the fact that all the tensions had been built up, especially in the last month. With what was going on between China and Taiwan. So he had backed out on saying, I'm going, or at least I'm not going to go there right now, but if she's coming here, we'll still meet. And he was hoping that would be less of an instigation towards Xi. Now, we have reported for the last 2 weeks that Xi has been saying, do not meet with her. If you do, there will be, retribution towards Taiwan for it. So we'll have to see what happens. When Nancy did it, she went to the country, as I'm sure most of you here remember. She went to Taiwan. That, after that happened, it basically changed the way they drill. Xi is having his military drill around the island. Not only did they surround the island at the time, but they also now have started crossing the Meridian line and trying to normalize it, doing it much more often, flying in much more often, starting to send drones over onto the smaller islands. They did a lot. They amped it up significantly. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know how much more you can amp it up. So if they take this as a reason to say, hey, we're going to amp it up, where do they go from here? How much more amperage can you get without getting into a conflict?
And it's also the kind of MO that the media plays up things that really shouldn't be played up, but these things have turned out to be pretty big things. They say resolute countermeasures if McCarthy and Tsai meet. We assume that it's going to before we've actually backed out of things, so we wouldn't do it. Somebody said that the U.S. has no chance of defending Taiwan. That might be on purpose, though. If you listen to what President Biden said in his speech a few months ago, he said everything will go back to Made in America very soon. And he said, and stand up. And he had the Intel guy stand up from Intel and go, Intel is going to help us, and we're going to be manufacturing chips here in the USA now. Why do you think they're doing that? I think that it's already been worked out. Like, China's going to take Taiwan. And if it is, unless we are there, if they do another thing, say this one, and this is a crazy prediction. This happens, this meeting happens. They then surround and, I guess, what do they call that? Blockade the island, which is what they say is the most likely scenario, where they don't even fire a shot. They blockade and trap everybody out. They even take these cargo ships. They make a line like they did back in the Philippines when they put 200 ships lined up. I think that was practice. And they blockade the island and stop everything from coming in and out and say, we're not going to allow it. If they do that and start it by doing a drill after this and then get there and we're not there yet, then there's very little chance that we can get there to stop it from ever happening. We would have to go there and take land back or take islands back. They said that they would take, the first few tiny little islands and they would go from one to the other. Once they take that first island, it's basically this domino, set into place where it's like the first one, second one, third one. We have to already be in place to stop this from happening. And can we allocate enough Navy and just have them there permanently? Well, obviously we haven't. And if this is going to bring that kind of excuse, watch, they could blockade and circle the island again. And I think that if the next time they blockade and do that huge drill again, I think that's right before they do whatever they're going to do. I think that will happen right before they actually invade the next time they do it. And who knows? The last one with Pelosi caused that practice run. This next one could be the real thing. They've been sending in jets and jets and jets every single day, testing how they react. They've been taking notes on how they react to everything. I think that they are preparing and they are mobilizing. They're setting up mobilization centers just like they have in Russia. I mean, this is getting up there. And we have, of course, we have sanctions on different parts of the Chinese companies and things that have a lot to do with all of this stuff that is going on. So we'll see. We'll follow it, and we'll show you what happens. But that's just my prediction. Give me yours. Put yours is down in the comments down below. And then Putin's blogger signed his own death warrant with horrifying twist of fate before being blown up by TNT-laden statue. Dex, will you cover this one?
Absolutely. So this is kind of crazy. So this gentleman's name was Vladimir Tatarsky. He's sitting in a cafe. Okay. He's a famous, semi-famous blogger, propagandist, as they refer to him here in the article. The cafe he's sitting in is owned by the head of the Wagner Group. He has an admirer who comes by, and her name is, I think, Daria. She comes by and he invites her over, and she gives him a gift. And the gift she gives him is a bust of himself, which later turns out, as she leaves, to be TNT, and he is then perished. So she then gets caught and admits to it and says, yes, that's what I did. I was the one in charge of bringing him the gift. But she wasn't necessarily the one totally behind it. They asked who was behind it, and she said, I'll tell you later. That's about as much information as we have. The CCTV footage shows her strolling past the cafe, clutching the package before entering it. And then the other people that were present are the ones that said, yeah, he had, brought her over or said, come, you could talk to me. And, as if she was a fan or a, admirer of his. And he was taken out by a bust of himself.
So I guess would that technically, he unalived himself, right? If I ever get a bust of myself, I'm running. Because if somebody makes a bust of a YouTuber, that's creepy. Although I did get a cool hand carved wood thing that was absolutely art. I mean, that person was unbelievable. I'm just glad it wasn't laden with TNT. I'll have to show you guys that. It's a piece of wood. They wood burned my face with earphones on. I've shown you guys before. Now that I think about it, I think that you wouldn't think that was too crazy, but having like a gold, like James Bond gold statue of yourself and being like, hey, have this. I don't know. But I guess there are people that do that, right? I guess after this, now people are going to be like, wait, whoa, why are you giving me a gold bust? That's kind of weird. But before, giving somebody a gold bust of themselves was totally normal. They have to have it on their bat desk next to the bat phone. And their head has to lift up and they push the button, because we're living in a Bond movie. Russia is confiscating passports from its elites, fearing that they will defect over its invasion of UKR, or at least this is what the report says. Now, just because this is coming, you know that there's Ganda going on both sides. I hate to say that everything that the U.S. says about Russia is Ganda, but it pretty much, a lot of it has been because it's wartime. A lot of the stuff that Russia says about the U.S. is Ganda. It is wartime. They are both just absolutely making lies about, they're all doing their psyops. So this could be true, though. And a lot of the times what we'll find out is parts of these get confirmed by Russia. Maybe it's a different reason, but it sounds like Russia's security services are taking passports from senior officials and executives in state-owned companies. The outlet said that Russia was worried about defections from people who opposed the invasion of UKR. The Kremlin and its FSB agency fear people could leave because they privately object to the conflict and feel the sanctions on Russia are ruining their lavish lifestyles, the report says. Sources told the newspapers that security officers demanded some of the country's elites hand over travel documents, enforcing Soviet-era rules that had barely applied recently. So let me ask you guys, when you hear this, when you hear them taking away the passports, what could that be? And I would love to hear some suggestions in chat. I'm actually going to pop over to the chat real quick. What's your theory? I know there's got to be a crazy theory around this, right? I don't have one. I don't have one about this. Dex, what do you think this could be? Like, could this be secretly something else? I want to hear people's suggestions. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, outside of how it's reported, it's what else it could be is what I really think, and I think that's why you're asking the question. That's probably what we need to be looking at is what else could it be, because it seems a little too obvious, and it's coming from unnamed sources, intel from the UK, not UKR, and from Financial Times. So not dismissing them at all, but at the same time, it's not like this was published or a statement from the State Department inside Vlad's country that they're doing this. We don't know if it's true or not.
NJM said they are going to put everyone into the army and recruit them. Oh, so you're saying that even the rich, they won't be able to go out of the country. In fact, they're going to be recruited by the military. Let's see here. The chair is against the wall. Let's see here. There's always a point their righteous finger in their chat. Yes, now that always happens. Doesn't matter what chat you're in. Let's see here. I had multiple dreams of New York being taken out by nukes. It will happen. When did you I'm curious when you had those dreams, though, because we've covered how they had PSAs in New York. That's one of, I believe to this day, or at least in the last couple decades, that has had a nuke PSA. And they basically said, go inside, close the doors, listen for more. They basically say, go inside, wait for us. That's what the PSA said. It doesn't give any useful information. It's just go inside and wait for more information, which most considered kind of a horrible PSA, but it's the basics. And then they're supposed to give you the rest of the information later. So many are not physically fit for drafts, says Carol. Dank Bear, I think an impede. I don't know. I would check. Where are your guests with opposing opinions? This is all just your opinion. I already know your opinions on issues. Stephen Bazzelli, we're going to have video guests as far as that goes, but we're dealing with sound issues. But yeah, we've had guests. We've had probably over 150 people on the show of my friends, and then we've had callers up until just this last month. So yeah, they'll be coming back. Now that we have a new computer, it will be good. But again, this isn't like one of those debate shows on Fox News or something where everybody's across the table like, you do this. The opposing opinions are in the chat next to you. There's like 3,000 of them disagreeing with me right now. So, I mean, that should be pretty good. John Ryan, the scriptures say to go into your interior rooms and wait until storm passes over. Oh, that's creepy. So that's like the Bible predicted the PSAs. Says, because the more you shield yourself from a nuclear blast and wait, that basically said the same thing. Solar panels might be 100 watts, but with a battery, 1,000 watts is possible, as you indicated. Michelle Matsuka's, let's see here. Baron Saturday, I've had nightmares about the big one for years. Never again volunteer yourself. Android Architect says fake call-ins prescripted. I know you're probably responding to somebody else. Dude, we have had 4 callers a night for 5 years. And you think that, like, we are able to, like, dude, it's myself for the first 2 years of it, which, by the way, we always had, like, crazy, just absolutely nuts calls. And then when Dex came along to actually answer the calls, so I just didn't have to answer every single call, we had great people call in. 4 different people. Yes, we had the same people call in a lot because, again, it's hard to get people to call in at midnight. But yeah, we've had thousands of people on this show. I never got that when I first started this. It's like the number is public. Anybody can get through. I think the people that say that have called in after the first 20 minutes of the show when we already have our callers lined up, and they think it's rigged because they keep calling after you can't get in. If we do our call-ins, just to remind you, you have to call in the first minutes because then Dex lines up the callers and then they wait until their spot because we only have 4 callers per show. So I never understood that. And we tell you that every call-in. So just in case you're new and you're watching, you have to call in the first 20 minutes after we introduce Dex. Otherwise, you're not going to get in unless we get a dropped caller. Or people will call in. I've had people write me emails. They've watched old shows from a year ago and said, I called in all night. And they were watching a year-old show. And I'm like, oh, man. That's why we started putting the date on that scroller on the call-ins. Let's see here. The one time I called, I got in easily. I know. And then everybody calls in and they say, wow, I got right in. I'm so surprised. It's kind of funny. Let's see here. Lisa Douglas, I've been on the show. Yes. Okay. How many people have called in and got on the show? I bet you there's a bunch of you here. And apparently you're all scripted hacks, right? Yeah. Because we just have the budget for that. Always a great, and if we, dude, oh, that's the funniest part. If we scripted them, don't you think that there would be like every show, like some insane call? We would get an insane, really crazy call and it would be legit and it would be great. Like maybe once every 2 months. If we were scripting the calls, every call would be absolutely unbelievable. Good idea, but that's not what we do. It's kind of funny, actually. I haven't heard that in a long time. That's kind of funny. Haven't heard that since like I can actually think of when I heard about that last. Nobody suspects that our calls are scripted because they're interesting to say the least. They're funny. They're great. They're awesome. But they're definitely not scripted. And then Russia takes over the presidency of UN Security Council. Bad optics for the West. Propaganda win for Putin. It says that Russia has once again resumed the top job of the United States nation's Security Council by filling the presidency for the month of April. And the security officials are concerned how the Kremlin will use the influence while it sits in the rotational seat. The presidency shifts each month among the 15 member states on the council, so Russia's tenure in the seat will be short. It says, but officials say Moscow could use its brief position to influence the council's agenda, prioritize or deprioritize certain issues, and appear as legitimate world leader to Russians at home. It says it's not going to be a happy month, Jonathan Watchell told Fox News Digital. Watchell served as counsel for the U.S. Permanent Representative and Mission to the United Nations on Foreign Policy and Global Communications during the T-Man administration. And it said Russia had the presidency last February. That's when the invasion started in UKR. And here we are a year later, and arguably the most precarious point in the conflict. And it says, Wacho said in reference to the heightened risk of nuclear warfare and increasingly tense geopolitical relations. It says Moscow's going to be running the Security Council. That's not good. The Kremlin has already set a meeting for the April agenda that will be chaired by its foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, who has repeatedly given false narratives regarding Russia's war aim in UKR, levied accusations of Nazism against the Kiev administration, and propelled dangerous rhetoric regarding nuclear escalation against the West. I just want to point out, if you do want to talk about like people that have propelled dangerous rhetoric or levied accusations of Nazism against the Kiev administration, then you would have to include CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. You just have to go back as far as 2014 when they did tons and tons of videos how there was that stuff going on in that place, which is kind of funny. It hasn't even been a single decade, and all of those, and this is the most suspicious thing ever. All those videos that CNN did and went to these parts that now Russia controls over, went to those parts and got interviews of people saying that these horrible things were happening to them by the actual UKR government. All those videos were actually officially on their websites, everything else. All of them got removed. And actually, I think it was redacted that one of their friends actually was able to watch as they ended up taking all of these pieces down. If things have changed and you truly changed and it changed with the times, why delete those things? Why get them off of your website? They talked on CNN. They said that they were basically the Nazi word in that country. And now, a couple short years later, that's the accusations that are against them, but now they're on the complete other side. It's kind of funky. Dex, they basically will have a lot more powers for at least a month. And I don't know how much it will actually affect everything, but they can sway things slightly if they're running the Security Council for a month.
Yeah, I don't think they have any power other than just being able to change the agenda. So to the extent that they could say, we're not going to talk about this or we're going to talk about that, they may put stuff in and out of the agenda for the month, but that's it. They don't get any extra voting power than they already have, which, by the way, they do have a veto power just like we do. Which is why they tend to always veto something that goes against them, and we would do the same. So, but yeah, it is interesting. It's probably a weird position for the other nations that are there, with the exception of maybe Xi, from having to take leadership of those meetings and listen to them, lead them when they're actively plotting against them.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's not like they can't do anything drastic. It's not like they can make orders or anything. They can just control kind of what ends up being talked about. And then Finland to join NATO on Tuesday. Before we go into this, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com/EMP. You can actually protect your vehicles, your cars, your trucks, your generators, including you can get one for your Flex 1500 that protects it against all phases of an EMP, and it will protect you against a Carrington level event. If a CME, a coronal mass ejection, happens, and it will, it's actually it's not if, it's a when, this will end up grounding the signal in 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry whatever it's on. So if you have this rigged up to your car and you are hit by a CME or multiple phases of an EMP, one after another, this will end up grounding those signals and end up protecting you so you can keep driving home, keep driving to bug out, keep your lights on. There is also a house version. You have to have an electrician put it in, but that is the only one I believe you have to have an electrician put in. But that one, the cool thing about that is everything plugged in within 250 linear feet will be protected. So everything plugged in. Obviously, you can't put everything you own in a Faraday cage or your whole home in one, But what you can do is you can get an EMP shield. This is the same company that's outfitted agencies like DHS, DOD, and now the DEMSO team officially helping the Texas grid. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. Not only will you get $50 off per device, so if you have multiple cars to do or if you want to mix and match, you will get $50 off per device, and that stacks on top of any sale that they do. So definitely a great time to do it is around any kind of holidays, things like this. They're always doing, brand new sales, and it always stacks on top of ours. So keep that in mind. marfooglenews.com/EMP. You're helping independent media at the same time as protecting yourself against a natural or a possibly supernatural disaster. So go over there, marfooglenews.com/EMP, and thank you guys for doing so. The car version takes about 10 minutes to put in yourself. You don't have to have an electrician to put these in your cars or trucks or even your motorcycles or boats or RVs. So keep that in mind. All right, and Finland is to officially join NATO on Tuesday. It seemed like it was going to be forever. It just seemed forever that this was it was never going to happen. It seemed just so far off. And now it's actually happening. Sweden is not. Obviously, there is still the problem with Turkey and Sweden. Originally, Finland and Sweden were kind of filling out the resume together. And then because of Sweden, they said, well, we want to separate our application. They're already in. What people should be asking is UKR is not even in yet. Finland's about to join on Tuesday. Finland ended up filling out the application after UKR. You don't wonder why UKR isn't just an instant in? Even Mr. Gates, Yili Bates, said in an interview recently that UKR was one of the most corrupt countries in the world. So there's reasons why they weren't part of NATO in the first place. But now Finland, which has been historically neutral and probably, to be honest, what are the downsides of NATO, by the way, Dex? I'm sure there's plenty of downsides as well. Why didn't Finland and Sweden didn't want to join? Because then that would piss off other people. They were staying neutral because they wanted everybody. They didn't want to piss off anybody. They were just saying, hey, we're going to do our own thing over here. We're not trying to cause trouble. Now they are officially joining NATO on Tuesday. They are adding 810 miles along the Russian border of NATO to Russia. Vlad's going to be pissed.
Yeah, that's significant. And that's exactly right. I mean, before there was this conflict, before there was these sanctions, before all that, countries like Finland and Sweden wanted to sit in the middle and say, you know what, we can be friends with everyone. We can do trade with everyone. We don't have to pick sides because we don't feel our security is a threat. We feel we can handle it ourselves. And, now what they're saying is that they've seen what happened to UKR. They've seen what's happened to Belarus. And they, could literally think that they could be next because they're right up against the border. And they're one of the few countries remaining that is up against the border that's not. You still have Latvia, Lithuania that are really just Latvia, that's literally right up against Russia's border. Of course, Lithuania up against Belarus's border, and Poland up against Belarus and UKR. So, there are a few other countries that are not part of NATO, Ireland and the Moldova. Remember, we've talked about them being a target of Vlad's concern. So I think, but the big point here is, all of a sudden now we have this huge, the NATO alliance will have this huge landmass that's right up against St. Petersburg. It's basically flanking St. Petersburg from the north, while Estonia is flanking it from the south, very close to St. Petersburg. Probably doesn't make much of a difference to Moscow, but it does make a huge difference to everything that's happening in the northern part of Western Russia, especially into the areas that go into the Arctic. So that's significant.
And as far as that new line of territory that's going to be NATO, that the whole thing was they said that if UKR agreed to not join NATO at all at one point, and we don't know if they were bluffing about that, but they said, if you don't join, we'll pull everything out if you promise to disarm this and that. It was obviously, a huge ask, and they said no. But that whole thing is now, with Finland joining, that's a whole nother 810 miles of NATO on their border. This was the very thing that they say they went to conflict over, is that they did not want NATO on their borders. And now Finland is joining that. Finland, which has been historically neutral. I mean, we're watching history right now. And then Russia threatens big military buildup over the new NATO member. As we talked about on the short over on Marfoogle News, Moscow will be enhancing its military presence in the west and northwest of Russia in response to Finland's accession to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Essentially, what they're going to be doing is they say that they're going to be moving military to all of the different places, including the northwestern, where Finland is. And they're essentially saying, we're going to look at what happens, and depending on that, we're going to move a whole lot of troops around. Dex, could I say, I mean, that's pretty much the simplest way to say this, right? Because they're not even making they're not making a threat right now. They're sort of saying, we're going to move depending on what you guys do. And if they put in weapons into Finland, they say they're going to go further, right?
Well, of course. I mean, it's that border. Like, they didn't have to worry about that border. That border used to have border crossings, and people could come and go in between, Russia and Finland. And, now it's going to be, this is a NATO country, and this is a country that's sole purpose, and the NATO alliance's sole purpose is to, defend against Russia. So it's not, it's not like Vlad can join NATO. It's NATO is against them. So they're adding a guaranteed enemy now across that border. So they have to protect it.
And somebody pointed out, says that that Russia has attacked Finland before and still has land that it stole. I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look that up. Let's see here. Pisces Traits says, great luck worldwide. Yeah, I think we need it at this point. And Russian ambassador to Belarus says nuclear weapons will be deployed to Belarus's westernmost regions. So at the same time the Finland stuff is going on, the China and Taiwan stuff is going on, they are saying that they are going to move nukes right to the border, to the westernmost regions. And this was supposedly a threat to stop Finland from joining, or to, basically to push, hey, stop moving forward with all this crazy stuff. And they didn't go for it. So now they're saying that they're going to move tactical nuclear. If you are one of the many who believe that there may be a single nuclear event that starts everything off, that starts a conventional war, not a mutually assured destruction, not the whole world being destroyed, this would be the setup right before that happens. They now moved Russian tactical nuclear weapons right on the border, and they could easily send it, 50 miles over and do some damage and then start this whole thing off. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying there's many people that believe a single tactical nuke would be enough to shock the world and get everybody pissed off to get us into World War III, if that is what is planned to bring on all of these other agendas that are down the line. It says, quote, this is from Grisloff, the nuclear weapons will be deployed to the western borders of our allied state and will enhance our security capabilities. This will be done despite the outcry in Europe and the U.S. Essentially, he goes on to say that the U.S. has 11 different countries and 11 different places right around us that have nukes. They do it. We're going to do it. We're doing the same thing they're doing. They've said this on multiple occasions. They said in the first place, well, we're basically outfitting one of our allies with weapons just like the U.S. does. But what comes next? That is the big question. That's what we're all wondering. Before I move on, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stephen McMahon. Thank you, Zen1AZ. I appreciate that. Blue Boy 1968 Chapel. Thank you, Blue Boy. It says, I've got a funny feeling Xi might try to take out Taiwan while their president is out of the country. JST, just remember that what happens in Iran in 79 when the Shah left the country for cancer treatment in the U.S. How did that end up, though? Do you remember how... Dex, can we look at that up? Wasn't that a giant, huge, just complete screw up, though? Wasn't that just like a disaster?
What are you talking about?
When in Iran in 79, that big thing where when the leader left the country, and I believe they went in and they took out things, right? Wasn't that when U.S. troops went in or something?
But that was the hostage crisis that we had there during the revolution.
Yeah. And wasn't that a complete disaster? I'm pretty sure.
In many ways.
Yeah. I watched a documentary on that like 5 or 6 years ago and thought, man, this is crazy. I was born in 86, so that's before I was even born. But yeah, I remember watching that and saying, gosh, this is nuts. And that's back before all of the crazy stuff we had now, before computers and all that. They were doing all sorts of weird spy tricks to try to get a hold of them. The dragon and the bear are playing 3D chess while we're playing checkers, Adam. We're already in checkmate. Much love from Sacktown, Fugle fam. Ame Katsuni, thank you. I appreciate that. And Lola Cafe. I hope we're not in checkmate, by the way, Ame. And then Lola Cafe, thank you for the support. I appreciate the super chat. Stephen McMahon, Adam, you are too young to be sick this often, if at all. Unfortunately, I already have my immune system is down a lot, but I have kids. If Stephen, do you not have kids? Because if you do, they bring home something from school every week. Baron Saturday, I'm real. You're kind of real too, Adam. You're all right. Well, thank you, Baron. Ray the Way, what can I say is I asked our chief a question about weapons supply. He says we're not low on ammo per the Production Act. Also, when asked about the collapse of the dollar from someone else, the question was avoided. Ray the Way, at your base, why would another soldier be asking about the collapse of the dollar to your chief? I don't know, that's kind of confusing. I guess in just common talk or something. Carol, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah. But yeah, that's weird that he avoided it. And then Panzer S-1, anti-aircraft system set up to protect Putin's Sochi residents, Navalny's investigative team, according to. So, if this is true, he is actually setting up anti-air at his personal residencies. Of course, this will be framed as, paranoia for sure. Dex, go ahead.
Well, and as you and I were talking about this, Adam, specifically, this is like a repeat of the same information. And so the real question that we got to ask here is, why are they putting it out again? This is January's news, but the new UKR media is making this relevant right now. We covered this in January in Moscow when they did it to the buildings. We covered it again in January when they did it as residents. And then actually, I think in the article, it even mentions this is January, but they don't really, that's not the highlight here. The highlight is they're doing this. But I think the real question is, why is the Ganda machine from UKR talking about the defensive posturing or trying to make that a relevant topic again and bringing it back up? Because we just did this last week. Remember, last week we were talking about how the news medias were reporting that they were putting these on the buildings in Moscow. Well, yeah, no kidding. We talked about that in January. So why are they bringing it up at the end of March? Why are they bringing it up at the beginning of April? The only thing that comes to my mind is the fact that there's this alleged offensive that's supposed to be going forward from UKR, which is wanting to reach deep inside and across the border into Putin's country. So, maybe there's some sort of setup for that, or painting a picture of that, because that's, we're going to start to see some action. And if you do recall, back in January when they talked about this, was one of the, I think we covered the very first drone incident at the I can't remember the name of the base now. It begins with Engels base, I believe it was, near Moscow. So this could be the precursor. And I guess that's maybe what we should look at here is this trying to tell us something that is about to happen?
And when they do this, when they put out the same thing like this, right? This is January news. They're doing it for a reason. That we got tons of messages last week when they basically reiterated what we could. And if it was funny enough, somebody said, "Oh, somebody covered this yesterday." I'm like, we covered in January. First of all, we don't claim to like get the first story or to be the fastest news. I don't even think people care about the fastest. They want to know the truth. They don't care if it's a month later. Nobody cares if you get to the news a day before somebody else. Because guess what? Everywhere around the world, they're going to repeat the same news. They're going to regurgitate the same stuff. What people want is they want to know the truth. People do not care if you got it there in 30 minutes or less. Unless it is something that will affect them in their personal life. If it's like news of a bang bang event at the grocery store down the street from their house, yeah, you want to know about that right that second. But if it's anything else, most people just want to know what the damn story is and the truth. That's what I never got about that. It's like we're all going to be talking about this. These are world events. So everybody should be weighing in, and we should all be trying to find the truth rather than, the BS. The fact that they're repeating this stuff, it freaks people out. It gets people hyped up, and something is about to happen. And this machine that they have with the media, it's setting us up for something. It's not letting us forget that he has air defense systems on his house and on his buildings. Why are they reiterating that his own personal residencies have this? Is he not going to be at his house and they end up attacking one of his houses and destroy it? And that triggers a tit for tat? I don't know. But they're reiterating that. Is this for future Ganda that hasn't even happened yet? And then Lukashenko states NATO plans to invade Belarus. Whoa. NATO is planning to invade Belarus now. And remember, Lukashenko said that he will only join the Russian conflict, and he is now the holder of possible tactical nukes if somebody attacks him. If you want to talk about a setup for a fantastic Freddy, this is it. It says that self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, said in a message to the Belarusian people that NATO countries are preparing for an invasion of Belarusian territory. It says, take my word for it, I've never lied to you. NATO countries, are preparing to invade the territory of Belarus to destroy our country. Whether they are invading or something happens and they start going at it, it seems like outside of UK or outside of Russia, there may be some back and forths with NATO. NATO might actually see some action. I'm just thinking about all of the... and they said, what was it, Dex? Was it 300,000 more NATO troops are going to Europe? Or they're going to station 300,000 more troops on NATO, on Russia's borders? Was it 300,000 or 30,000? I believe it was 30,000. Sorry about that. I think you probably didn't hear me, but was it 30,000 or 300,000 in Europe for NATO?
I can hear you now. Are you talking about the total number of troops?
Yeah, recently they said they were
300,000.
Yeah, is that not insane? 300,000 more. I think that they're about to get into a big something, and this is possibly totally Ganda, whatever, but they're basically setting it up for something right now. It says, according to his estimates, the bloc's grouping in Poland and the Baltic states alone has more than 21,000 military personnel, 250 tanks, almost 500 armored vehicles, about 150 aircraft and helicopters, and all of this armada demonstratively training near the borders of Belarus and Russia. So he's saying on NATO's side, they are preparing. And you can take this with a cup of salt. He may actually, if he is telling the truth, maybe he's just telling us that NATO has massive forces there and they are preparing for a massive conflict, which it would make sense if they were lying to us until the last second. They can't really hide the anti-tank measures in Poland. The Polish people immediately noticed them. In fact, the Polish people, as far as a week before they publicly came out with that, were posting on their local social media saying, what are these? They are now they're setting up checkpoints on the borders. So a week before the big news broke, they were setting up in the lesser known areas tank measures. Then it finally came out and the local people already knew. What else are they doing? I mean, they're digging trenches in Romania. And Russia is opening up recruitment and mobilization centers all over the country. And then guess who else is doing that? China. China's opening up these recruitment centers and mobilization centers all over his country. What are they preparing for? And if NATO truly is, gathering all these forces and about to add 300,000, does this not look like a World War III is about to happen? And when it does, who cares if we're that's the funniest thing is if we get vindication, we're all screwed. So I don't want to be right. Unfortunately, I think that we all know something bigger is coming. Classic Adam. That was a classic Adam. Let's see here. Dex. Do you think he's telling the truth about this? Do you think that there's it's not so much about if they're invading, this could be a setup on his end so he could then dress guys up like NATO and then attack himself, or he could be telling the truth and this is what his perception of it is because they are putting together so many troops and forces.
I think this commentary came out originally as part of the explanation for placing nukes in Belarus. I think that, he can easily stretch the defensive line, which NATO would say that's what that is. It's a defensive line, not an offensive line. He can easily stretch and say that defensive line is an offensive line and it's coming for us. Although NATO's never said that. NATO's never explicitly said they're trying to go take anything. They've just said we're protecting our, NATO partners. So, and unlike Vlad, who said, yeah, I'm trying to take some, if not all, of UKR. And then we later found that they showed battle maps showing them going into Moldova. And then, of course, we've got the rhetoric coming out from their different talking heads about Poland. Now, little quick geography lesson for those of you going back to the article we talked about, that they've now said they're moving those tacticals, not just in Belarus, but on the western edge. Obviously, western makes sense because that's closest to NATO countries. But right up against that western edge is Poland, obviously. But the closest city right there, or one of the closest, largest cities right there, is Warsaw, the capital of Poland. So that's going to be putting them right in the crosshairs for the closest and quickest potential attack from those tacticals that are being placed into Belarus if they're placed on the western edge.
Andrew Architect says, Adam, stop by the channel sometime. You can rest assured, don't take me seriously. Oh, I wasn't. And by the way, I didn't know if you were responding to somebody else or something. I don't worry about it, Android. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I will. California loves Marfoogle, aye, aye, Captain. Yeah, we're us. Yeah, If I guess if people don't like how we do it, it's not. It's all voluntary. Unless they have like Stockholm syndrome through YouTube or something. They're like, I hate Marfoogle, but I can't stop watching. I have Stockholm. I have Marfoogle home syndrome. I can't stop watching. Marfoogle. They just can't stop saying Marfoogle. It's just such a weird word. Marfoogle. Marfoogle. Oh. Love this show. Been a viewer for 2 months now. Chrissy's Corner for Collectors. You and I have a lot in common. I love, I'm a hoarder. So you're probably a collector, but I would love to check out your channel. Before we move on, let's see here. Marfooglenews.com/prep. Make sure, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and check this out. The reason why we picked My Patriot Supply for the food supply, there are a lot of great options as far as freeze-dried foods. This one, I believe, is one of the most affordable ways to get a huge stock of food that is all freeze-dried, Mylar packed, 25-year shelf life that will get you through any kind of disaster and is affordable. It is currently, as of the shooting of this show, $200 off with our code. It is the largest discount to date. They did switch it up for a couple weeks, and they were doing an Alexa Pure, which was actually, in technical terms, a little bit of a better deal because you got almost a $300 water filtration system. But now with that $200 off, it is again under $600 for 3 months of food. That breaks down to about $200 for a month of freeze-dried food that will last forever. If you've been to Walmart or any of the places where it's $15 per meal, it's pretty insane, and it can add up a lot. They have smaller packages. You can get a 3-day 72-hour kit you can throw in a go bag. They have a month kit. They have week kit. They have all sorts of kits. But this is the most affordable. Some of their competitors range up to almost $2,000 for the same 3 months. And you say, well, maybe, you get meat with those ones. Nope. They're vegetarian as well. If you want, I highly recommend going and getting their meat buckets. They have a whole system. They have freeze-dried meats that you can get separately that basically they complement the 3-month perfectly. So I'd highly recommend looking into this. This is one of the most affordable and efficient ways to get up there if you are on a budget. I am looking into other companies as well, as just like if somebody wants to go the other routes, then we're going to be looking at that as well. But man, you cannot beat that. For the same amount as some of the other ones, you can get 9 months for the same price as 3 months. That's huge. When it comes down to it, you're going to want to have something that will get you through and you can survive on. So these are great. They come down, packed down. If you can think of 3 months of canned, non-perishable foods, it takes up a lot of room. These, since they are packed down and freeze-dried, it takes up 2 buckets for 3 months. That's a huge thing. It's completely a space-saving thing in itself, but especially when you add that water in, freeze-dried food keeps almost all of the flavor it originally had. Once you add that water back in, it's like magic. It's prepper magic. Go to marfooglenews.com/prep. You'll not only be supporting us, you'll be getting a giant discount, and you're helping independent news and preparing yourself at the same time. Every one of our affiliates we pick for a reason. We pick because we not only use them, that we love them, or that we think it will make your life easier, save your life, or get you through a sticky situation. So make sure to go check it out. It is also home to all sorts of other things. So you can go click the tab at the top. You can look at the air purifiers, the water purifiers. They have camping gear, all sorts of crazy, crazy stuff over there. Survival gear, all sorts of great stuff. So check it out. marfooglenews.com/prep. And then former Russian commander in UKR says Moscow was unprepared for a protracted conflict and is now heading for military defeat. We get these on a daily basis almost. They are always saying that Vlad is on the edge of defeat and it's almost over. But a week after these come out, every single time, it is completely contradicted. They say, they only have enough missiles for 3 more attacks. After 3 more attacks, they said, we were sort of right. They only have 3 more attacks. We're not kidding. There was a series of 3 different articles that came out by major mainstream that said they would only have enough for 3 more attacks after the world watched these massive barrages. After 6 of them and after 2 articles, they said, well, it's because they've been making missiles, and they don't care about sanctions and they continue to make the ammo. It's like, well, no, Sherlock. And then they said they've got enough for 3 more attacks. That was like 12 attacks ago, okay? They said that they don't have enough people. They constantly say that they're underestimating. They're putting it in the head of every person who reads this that we're supporting a war and we're supporting the winner, right? But the truth, if you don't care about this side or that side, and if you're not, I'm worried about, being accused of carrying somebody's water or this. I don't care for Vlad. I think he's a POS. But I also care about the truth of the situation is UKR is not doing that great. We are sending tons of money in, and they're justifying this money, and they're trying to tell it, you're not going to support a conflict that they're just literally getting their butts handed to them. Nobody would support that. It's tax dollars coming out of everyone's pockets to pay for it in whatever country you're in. Most all the countries watching are in NATO countries. And most likely your government has contributed to this thing. So of course they're going to tell you, Vlad's losing. Vlad has a no limits partnership with China. And right now, if you haven't noticed, those 2 countries are making big moves and they're trying to take the US's place. Some are even cheering it on. But I will tell you, if you have China as the number 1 country in the world, that is a scary place to be. It's already bad enough with some of the big brother, things that are going on right now. Just imagine when somebody else takes charge. Look at all the things that are getting pushed right now, and I think I know who's pushing them. As far as taking things away from us, choosing how we live, putting this all under one umbrella. It's getting crazy. Dex, they could be headed for a military defeat, but if they are, then they're going to be backed up, or there's a bigger disaster. If they were defeated for some reason, and they are right about this, they are the second largest holder to nukes, or actually they have the most nukes, don't they? They have more than the U.S., or is it backwards?
No, that's correct. They have more. And it's obvious. I mean, look at even some of the stuff we've covered so far in tonight, like the Pantiers at his retreat, in his home. All of this narrative that's coming from the Western media, and a lot of it may be coming from UKR too, specifically, but it's being pushed, is definitely painting a picture of Vlad's defeat, or being in a defeatist position where he's not making any progress. He can't continue to operate. He's going to lose, et cetera, et cetera. All of that's the narrative we're given. And I think, and we'll talk about it in just a moment in the next article, as because we've talked about this before, there is this idea that there's a big push or a big wave coming from UKR, and that's going to change everything. And whether that, we've talked about the fact that they've suggested they're going to take Crimea. They've suggested they're going to, reclaim all the territory that was taken from them. They've suggested they're going to push across the border. Maybe I wouldn't think they would march across. That would just be a little extreme, but we've seen them reach across with tools, with, weapons, with things. So as that expands, so I think that's, all of this is part of the Ganda is part of the tactics used in a conflict, and part of that is psychological towards the people that are both on each side. You want them to fear, like there was that report we covered 2 weeks ago about them, the elite in Crimea selling their properties and moving out. Right? We don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, and people hear it, or even if it's not true, but if people hear that message, they start to wonder, they know what's going on. They're getting out. We must be getting ready to lose. So that it is a big part of the conflict machine on both sides to produce narratives and Ganda, or whatever you want to call it, that support initiatives that they're doing. And so that's part of this, I think.
And as he said, looming counteroffensive will test UKR's army's resolve. In vicious but mostly static fighting in snowy, artillery-cratered fields and ruined cities, UKR rebuffed a Russian offensive over the winter. Now it is UKR's turn to go on the attack. Signs are everywhere that it is coming in the next month or so. New Western weapons that could prove critical in assaults like German Leopard 2 tanks or American mine-clearing vehicles are arriving in UKR. Thousands of recruits are training in newly constituted units tailored for offensives, and the military command is holding back elite soldiers from the worst of the fighting in the east. It says that in and around the city of Bakhmut, to throw them instead into the coming campaign. So they're actually stating that they're keeping their best guys for what is coming next. After more than a year of war, UKR is battle hardened. We are covered in 3 centimeters of stone, one fighter, Lieutenant Somolenko, said in a recent interview. We are covered in 3 centimeters of stone. In the U.S., since we don't really use centimeters, well, actually, I guess no. Do we centimeters are which now I sound like a dumbass. Centimeters is how much of an inch?
It's a metric. It's like 1.18 inches.
Okay.
3 centimeters, sorry.
But that's
3
UK. That's what they would say in UK, right? In Europe?
In parts of Europe, most of Europe, they use the metric system. In the UK, I think they use what we use.
Okay. Well, we would say it would be 1/8 of an inch or whatever it is, right? Okay. So it sounds crazy, but yeah, it's just like when somebody says kilometers per hour, I'm like, what is that? We always have to do math. kph, whatever, or kilometers. When they, it's a European article when it says kilometers, 80 kilometers away. But maybe in the UK, they know our system and theirs, and they're just smart. But I'm not. Let's see here. It says, but that toughness has come at a steep cost. UKR has lost thousands of its most experienced fighters. Now Lieutenant Samolenko, a veteran commander and survivor of the siege of the city of Mariupol, is using his experience to train new recruits. One thing that I have heard from some of the military folks that have people that are currently volunteering, they said they give them almost no training there. There is video documentation of how little training they got with some of the tanks. It was like they even admitted that they were supposed to get like a month-long training, and they're like, well, we had to speed that up. So we're giving them a day of training. So they sped through all of the things, how to steer the tanks, how to do everything in like 3 days instead of a month. So these guys aren't set up the greatest. There was a stat that came out that said that they last about 4 hours on the battlefield once they're deployed. That's pretty insane. Not very. I wouldn't be too happy to have those odds. And then thank you, Sniffles711, Comet Moon, Skyhouse, Yobi, Vault Music, The Real Meme Man. Thank you for hosting. I appreciate you hosting and bringing your people over here. Thank you, and thank you. Skyhouse, Chance Paladin, thank you so much. And the end is near. Again, thank you so much for your support. And let's see here. Stephen McMahon, been here from the start. I've been around the block several times. I, for one, approve of what the boys and the mods are doing. Ray the Way says, the question was a part of a question of the BRICS alliance. Lots of sergeants are awake to the reality of the geopolitical changes. Man. And he's referencing what I asked before is somebody was asking them about the dollar collapse. The chief at Whitman Air Force Base. Schaefer Girl says, I ordered my Marfoogle News t-shirt. Get yours at Marf's house. Truthwear. Hey, thank you, Schaefer Girl. And then Blue Boy, thank you. I've got a funny feel. Okay, I got that one. And then Steve McQueen, thank you over on the Rumble. Thank you, everybody over on Rumble. Appreciate you guys. And whoever's watching over on DLive, thank you guys. Thank your mods right now by going over to marfooglenews.com/friends. All of the mods are doing a great job down there. Specifically, thank you, Ilea. Thank you. I've seen you down there helping many people down there. Thank you. And then thank you, everybody, for making it tonight. Make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/friends to visit all of the mods' channels. They all put a lot of work into them, so make sure to go over and check them out. And then, Dex, going back to something kind of the main theme right now, is wanted to talk about, as far as nuclear events in any kind, there's been a lot of setup. There's been a lot of talk about nuclear events and a tactical nuclear event happening that kicks us off into a conflict that would bring the U.S. and the NATO alliance into a major conflict. First of all, if you have info, like real info, and you want to send it to us, make sure to send it to adam@marfooglenews.com, DM me at Marfoogle, or send it to Dex at marfooglenews.com or Dex@marfooglenews.com. But I want to hear your opinions, and this is the call to action here. Down in the comments down below, what do you think is going to happen as far as all this nuclear chatter? Do you think it is complete and utter hogwash? Or do you think something is on its way? Something that could be an event that turns everybody's stomachs upside down and gets everybody red in the eyes, ready to go to war? And how do you think it would go down? In your hypothetical, what would happen? If you're watching the replay, tell me in the comments down below what you think. Tell me, how do you think we could get ourselves in some sort of nuclear disaster? I would love to hear from you guys, and we will be going over some of these on a future show. Thank you, everybody, for visiting. Let's go over the web only. We've got a lot of crazy stuff here.
Absolutely. Head over to marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for today's show, and then, or if you're on YouTube or Rumble, open up that description and click on the show notes link. It'll take you right here. You'll get to all the news we just covered. That's at the top of the page, and you find this yellow bar that says overflow for you new folks. That's where the rest of the story is. That's what we're going to talk about right now. So all of the things that either extra news that didn't make it in the show, or some of the topics we just don't talk about here because we don't want to get everybody all riled up and throwing fisticuffs on the show. So as everybody's probably well aware of, because every news media outlet is covering it, the former president obviously indicted and is now in New York and should be going through the arraignment process tomorrow. All of that coverage, which by now some of it may even be outdated, but it's all there. We try to put as much of that there for you to find. There's a lot of other things going on, even though you would think that's the only thing going on. But I guess the media has got their opportunity to get some eyeballs because everybody wants to see that for sure. But there's other stuff happening as well. Apparently, the Jill's plane had to be turned around. That was due to an issue with the aircraft. There was more derailments that are happening. So if you're looking for that information, we've got it on the website. Another recent one that happened. There's some updates in with the moon mission that's out there. Some stories about the tornadoes. I know that a lot of you folks are living in that area where you're getting hit with the tornadoes. It's been crazy. Interesting stories on that. If you didn't see, Elon changed the logo. I think it's temporary, but he changed the logo of Twitter to the Doge dog. So for whatever that means, of course, the price of that coin jumped a little bit. We also do have some additional updates of what's going on in UKR. So we got other coverage here as well about what's happening over there, including Japan buying oil apparently at a higher price too. Which is breaking with the U.S., which is kind of odd. So we got to pay attention to what's happening with these oil trades. Especially, we got to pay attention to what's happening with the money that's being used to settle these oil trades. That's very insightful. So that and a whole lot more things about cell phones, things about what Tim Cook, who heads up Apple, had to say about meeting with Elon and DT. All sorts of good stuff on there. So go check it out. marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show. Scroll down to that overflow content and get the rest of the story. If you're on YouTube and Rumble, just open the description. Click on that show notes link. It'll take you right here.
So, and he changed the thing he does with Doge. It's like there's been many times where I don't do crypto, but I've thought about the Doge thing because they're so cheap. It's
I can't hear you.
It's pennies. Dex. Oh, everybody else can. Sorry about that. I've thought about the Doge. I'm not a crypto guy, but I thought about the Doge thing. They're so cheap. What are they at now? They're less than $1 per Doge, right? Is it?
I think it's like 9 cents.
9 cents per Dogecoin, right? Is it really that low? It got up to like 30, 40 cents or something at one point, but it's so cheap. But after looking into it and stuff, people are like, no, there's no potential for it. It can't get so big. It has to get so big to even be able to 10x or 100x or whatever they talk about. But I've thought about it, and he can just change the frickin' picture to Doge. He keeps making these Doge references, and what do you want to bet that him and his friends are like, hey, put, 50 million in Dogecoin today. I'll change the picture to Dogecoin, and they make some rat race, prank, and they go, hey, change it tomorrow to Dogecoin, and watch, it will go up 30 cents in a day. It will go back down, but it goes up. And imagine 30 cents on $50 million or whatever these rich people can buy the day before and then a couple weeks later sell it. I mean, it's just crazy. When you're that rich, you could take $10 million, put it in something like that. He has enough power to tweet out a certain coin, and then that coin will shoot up over a day. He has the ability. If he handed somebody else $10 million, he can then go, I think Bitcoin's going to go up in the next day or two. And he has enough influence that it will. And then you, of course, have somebody else that you just gave $10 million to invest in it and then sell it afterwards. I mean, it's almost like if you had the ability to travel in the future and get your own lottery numbers, right? He is at the point where he could make he can literally alter his money. Dex, do you think, did it go up? I would assume if he put Doge as the logo for Twitter that it went up. How many eyes is that on Doge?
It went up. I think it went up like 20%. Yeah, it went up 20%. It won't last though. I mean, that's not enough. Well, no,
of course not. 20 million. If you put $10 million, that would be a $2 million gain in a day. And we're talking these guys could, put $1 billion in the damn thing.
Well, but on the flip side, like if somebody put $10 million into it, it would go up more than 20% right now. That's a lot of money to flow into that coin. So all of a sudden, if somebody wanted to buy that much, the price would shoot way up, or would shoot up enough that it would be significant. And as soon as they sold it, it would shoot way down because they're selling it. So those are significant moves that can be made. And so the point you're making is spot on. He's influential and he can move markets. He can move coin prices. He can do that because he has a lot of influence. That's for sure. But the real thing, I'm sorry, one more thing. He has been talking quite a bit about taking and making financial transactions on Twitter and making that platform also have the capability of doing transactions. So if, he does something like that and integrates something like Doge right away, then that would cause it to go up and be meaningful, not just, hype, Elon hype. It's, that would be meaningful. If he actually started to allow people to buy a Tesla with Dogecoins, that would be a meaningful valuation of that, and it could actually go up.
For William says shorting. Yeah. Well, the thing is, and somebody else said that would be market manipulation. It is. And anytime he says something, and that's why he kind of got in trouble before about the whole Tesla stock thing. But it just seems crazy to me. And I do think, and I feel like he is going to do something stupid like that. Like, you could buy Tesla with Dogecoin or something. Didn't he do that with Bitcoin, and didn't he stop it? And I think he did it for temporarily and then said that he won't take it for Bitcoin until they get the energy consumption down or something. Because he said it's worse for the environment, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And that when he did that, the Bitcoin jumped up. It was huge. I mean, Bitcoin was at something. Even when, and I felt like a dummy because the guy told me about it when it was $30 a Bitcoin, and it was whatever 2013 or whenever it was $30, and I could have bought like at least 30 or 40. I had $1,000 Christmas bonus, and he told me about it and said, "Oh yeah, do that." I said, "Wait, so nobody knows who made it? Wait, nobody knows who created it? Oh, you don't physically get anything?" I said, "That sounds really stupid." My wife, every time, she's like, "You are so dumb." Because I came home and I told her about it. She goes, "Well, sounds interesting." She goes, "Well, maybe you could just get a couple." A couple would have ended up being like $80,000 or something at one point. Some people got rich that way, but I never get into the hypes. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I appreciate everybody here. Thank you, guys. Did you have a huge regret too? Did you know about Bitcoin when it was $10 and decided not to do it? Some of you probably did. And I know there's a few of you that did get in on it very early. But I even remember it was at 3,000 just a couple of years ago, even after all the hype, and thinking, gosh, it can't go up higher than that. And then, of course, it was like 50,000 something. All right, and remember to go to marfooglenews.com just marfooglenews.com. Sign up for our email alerts. Thank you. It is now, again, thank you, Dex, for your service.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And now it is time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Thank you, everybody. Everybody who made it tonight, thank you. Birdbanger, Daggett and Stump, Danish Girl, Taiwan Prepper. Let's make a fresh one. Thank you. Looks like Ray the Way. Ray the Way, actually, you may. I believe you are the top supporter tonight. Thank you so much for your support tonight. Lola Cafe, I believe you are number 2. Thank you so much. And then a couple tied for number 3. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for supporting independent media. Appreciate all of you. Let's make a fresh one for Ray the Way. And Lola Cafe tonight. Thank you.
fade away, I'll fade away.